You want to play a quick little game?
Oh, of course I do.
Yeah. We went through a lot of headlines. We had stuff like CNN, Huffington Post, stuff like that. We also looked at how did Breitbart and Drudge report this. But you might have noticed, if you've been watching a lot of these, one notable site we have not gone to yet, and that is Politico.
Oh yeah, here comes Politico.
So they have been notorious in calling that our revolution has been in disarray month after month after month. Okay, now they now have a headline. So they had previously had one that DeSantis won, Gillum leading, like in small font. What did they put as their final headline?
Okay, so you have to understand the context of this. If you've never seen this before, is recently in one of the elections. Progressives had a great night. They won I think our revolution in particular won like 60-70% of their election. It was stunning, right? And Politico still wrote like a dismissive headline. It wasn't even a headline. It was like in the context of the article or the content of the article. They were like, yeah, but they're mainly losing. I mean, so they have been unbelievable so far in our estimation. So can they do it even on a night like this where Andrew Gillum wins a historic, clearly progressive victory? Every other outlet is saying big progressive victory. What will Politico do? I already love this game. But as I predicted earlier in the night, I just think this is too big a victory that even Politico will have to give in and say, yes, it is a good progressive victory.
The main headline is boy trapped in refrigerator eats own foot. Thank you, airplane. And right under that is divided Democratic vote allows black guy to sneak in.
Jeez, that's a little bit too far for Politico.
Former Health and Human Services Secretary wins Florida run a primary in 27th district.
Right, referring to Donna Shalala instead. Yeah. Okay, you have a good headline, bad headline, somewhere in between?
We wouldn't be talking about. I don't think John would have brought it up this way if it was a great headline. So it was probably a muted headline. I would say DeSantis being the headline and Gillum underneath, or going to what is actually accurate, which is this, to sensationalize it, Trump versus Bernie in Florida. That
would be a good headline.
Which is actually what this is, and I think that's a way of looking at this.
So you think they'll focus on the Sanders part of it?
I'm not saying Politico should hire Michael to write their headlines. I'm just saying. Okay, all right. So what do we have?
Okay, the one thing that you all got wrong was Michael assuming that I would only bring up this game if it fit in with my preconceptions, and I really was hoping that Cenk would get it wrong. But Sanders backed Gillum, not just Florida primary stunner. It doesn't say progressive, but it does say Sanders backed Gillum.
Yes.
So
all right, hey, even Politico. We broke Politico's will. Okay.
Down goes Politico.
I believe
Tallahassee Mayor.
Politico in disarray.
Politico in disarray. That's hilarious. Politico in disarray has to report facts.
Here's the first paragraph. Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum delivered an upset victory in Florida's Democratic gubernatorial primary Tuesday night, toppling several well-funded candidates after a late surge in the polls and support from progressive groups.
They also have the picture of him holding up arms with Sanders. We joke about Politico, but they're not the worst.
So here's
there's some worse.
Some analysis of this race, because I missed it while you guys were you probably was just celebrating. But I spoke to 3 Republicans in Florida today. One who worked on Rubio's campaign, and 2 who were party chairmen in 2 different counties in Florida. And early in the day, they said, as long as Gillum doesn't win, it doesn't matter if it's Putnam or DeSantis, but we feel like it's going to be DeSantis. And they were much more afraid of Gillum than they were of Gwen Graham. The reason being the kind of voters that can come out for Gillum because of Scott. So now this makes Rick Scott's race much more difficult because black voters and progressive voters are going to come out in droves, whereas they may not have had Gwen Graham been at the top of the ticket, because Bill Nelson doesn't inspire so many people to come out of that ilk, right? Now,
so Michael, who was celebrating more, us or Bill Nelson?
I would say Bill Nelson probably more, but I don't think you would be able to tell.
Bill Nelson has been asleep Bill Nelson's been asleep for 3 hours.
Yeah, right.
And right after the early bird special, he called it a night.
And then he said, "Well, Gilliam and I are going to do well together." Bill Nelson's
can't wait to wake up, go to Denny's, and call Gwen Graham and be like, "What?
But the ripple
Bob's
effect.
little girl and tell her great news."
And then his staff has to tell him, "No, actually, Bill, great news for you.
Right, yeah, right.
You just probably accidentally won this."
Yeah.
And it's,
Well, and he's been down, and Scott's been running up 4 or 5 points in that race, and it hasn't looked good for him. This is just what Republicans didn't want because of the types of voters that are going to come out. The other thing, and one of these sort of undercard stories here, you can talk about Bernie, and he had a lot to do with getting him on the map. Luis Gutierrez, the representative from Illinois who's leaving Congress, who's a Puerto Rican, who's moving to Puerto Rico, actually, endorsed Gillum early, or late June, which is early for a race that's in late August, I guess. And he was a former colleague of Graham's too. You have to remember. He has gotten in touch with and reached out to so many Puerto Rican community leaders and a lot of the people that have facilitated Puerto Ricans resettling in Florida to make sure that they came out for Gillum. That endorsement, it's probably underrated, but so important because the margin was so small. Those are new voters in Florida, and those are voters that a lot of people thought would go to, that Scott was saying, well, I'm going to get these voters. I'm going to get these voters.
Let me use your point to sound like Cenk, I think, a little bit. So how is
this ought to be fun.
How is it that I'm the smartest guy in the world and no one recognizes it?
That's what I sound like?
No, so
monster.
So Michael with some adding a nice degree of context from the people who you talk to, the Republicans who were worried about a Gillum victory. Why do Democrats have to learn who the dangerous Democrat is from Republicans? Like, the establishment Democrats still backed her. They backed her throughout. They allowed, again, I don't know how you'd get around it, but they allowed the slim chance that Democrats have for winning the Senate, which is thought to be, a year and a half ago, thought to be 0 chance, upped itself up to, man, if there's an incredible wave and Ted Cruz loses, who knows? Maybe we could actually win the Senate, except for this weird mitigating factor that Rick Scott was going to beat a sitting Democratic senator in Florida. That they allowed Bill Nelson, he runs unopposed, he inspires nobody, he doesn't get any of these people out. They endorse a candidate in Florida, for the governor's race in Florida, who doesn't inspire tremendous people and doesn't get these people out. Republicans knew to be afraid of this guy. Why didn't Democrats recognize that if Republicans are afraid of this guy, this is the guy we ought to be supporting?
Well, you can argue that they did because they elected Gillum tonight.
No, Florida voters did, but no.
You mean the party?
I mean the party.
Apparatchiks?
Yes.
You want to say apparatchiks?
I do not.
All right. Okay. I don't know because it takes a while to learn that, and it But I'm serious. Like there's human nature. If you are somebody who is a part of a party for a long time, and Bob Graham is the godfather of that party in your state, and his daughter, who was a congresswoman, is leaving the Congress and running for governor and has been for a while, you get on board early. Not everybody did. And the people that didn't are with Gillum now. And
it just seems like there's a fair amount, and I'm not, again, this is me doing Cenk, so I'll mitigate it, but it just seems like a lot of people, it seems like that many Democratic decision makers, many people in the party, and you know that my criticism isn't of them morally, my criticism of I just want to win.
Strategically,
right? That they have managed to, they're like a team, and a very dedicated owner who's a good guy and keeps Jeff Fisher as the coach for 16 years, and they go 7-9 in 11 of those years.
Right. Like, you really think Bud Adams is a good guy? But
hey,
no, I know what you're saying.
Let's win 12 games, and see what happens.
This race also unusual too because you had a lot of the Democratic sort of leaders backing Phil Levine in Miami and Dade County too. So you had Democrats going against Democrats and Gillum sneaking between them a little bit too. So it wasn't just that they were behind Graham. Your point is right though. I mean, it's obviously right in this case.
They weren't with Gillum.
They weren't with Gillum. Most of them weren't. I mean, in Pasco County they were, but not everywhere. Yeah.